Number one, pray as if it's your last prayer. You hear it sometimes from the Imam, Sallu salatan wadda. Pray as if it's your last prayer. And then he said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and don't say something today that you'll have to apologize for tomorrow. Don't say something today that you'll have to apologize for tomorrow. And the third thing he says, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, is lose hope in what other people possess. These are his three advices. Now, why do I want to mention the whole narration as it relates to khushoo, as it relates to finding that peace in prayer and finding that meaning in prayer? Let's take the other two categories before we come back to the prayer. When you say something today that you'll have to apologize for tomorrow, that means that you say something very hurtful because you're making the assumption that I can just say sorry tomorrow. So if you have an abusive tongue to your family or to your friends, you say the most hurtful thing possible with the expectation that at the end of the day, I'll be able to say sorry for it later on, because that's what I'm used to. You're reckless with your tongue because you anticipate an opportunity to make up for it. If you have hope in what other people possess in this dunya, think about someone that is so obsessed on getting that house, on getting that car, on getting that position, or whatever it may be in this dunya. It consumes them. It's their whole concern. And in the process of trying to attain that thing, they are pushing off the thoughts of death and pushing off the thoughts of the hereafter because they're so obsessed with something that someone else possesses. I want what that person has. I want this position. I want that possession. And the idea is that you don't know that you're actually going to be alive to get it, but you will end up in the grave, and that person will end up in the grave as well. So connect this back to salah. When you go into your prayer, especially in the busy world that we live in right now, where we don't take breaks from anything, especially now with our smartphones and everything like that that are making us dumber, right? More distracted. You're constantly scrolling. You're constantly planning the next thing, looking at the next thing. Salah becomes the only quiet time that you have. And so you go into your salah, and what are you thinking about? You're planning the rest of your day. You're planning what you're going to say in that next meeting. You're planning what you're going to do tomorrow. You're planning what you're going to do next week. Because you're thinking ahead of the prayer. And so when the Prophet ﷺ says, pray as if it's your last prayer, it's that you actually shut off the idea that there's anything beyond this prayer, that there's any future prayer, that this is the last prayer that I'm going to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with. Imagine this is the last time you get to talk to Allah in this dunya, that you have that interview with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it could indeed be the case that it's the last time that you go into that salah. And so it connects to a greater idea of dunya. And here's what I want you to think about. You can't pray as if it's your last prayer without treating every day as if it's your last day. And so in general, the way that you view life is the way that you view prayer. The way that you view death is going to inform the devotion or lack of devotion that you find in your salah. So pray as if it's your last prayer means live as if it is your last day. So how you prioritize prayer is how you prioritize the akhirah over dunya in the general sense, and how you prioritize Allah over the people in the general sense. And it's important to also understand that you're not going to be able to dismiss everything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when you enter into the salah if you're not already prioritizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over everything else when you're not in salah. So it speaks to your overall priorities. And this is why the scholars mention that as you enter into the prayer, you are either amongst the muhibbeen, you're amongst the lovers coming back to that domain of love, or you're amongst the muqassirin, you're amongst the deficient who are coming back to apologize, the mudhnibeen, the sinners, to apologize and to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all of the ways that you've forgotten Him between those two prayers. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows you to experience the external desires out of His mercy. But in His mercy, He invites you to His banquet of salah 5 times a day. And He uses what Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu described the Quran as the banquet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That you are invited to a banquet of the Lord at least 5 times a day. And when you come in, every salah has its different ingredients. It has a different amount of rak'at. It has the prayer being recited out loud or silently. It has different components. And all of that is meant to inform you in a certain way. He says, and if you look at the different ingredients of the prayer, the recitation of the Quran is the best recitation. So the best to hear and the best to recite is the Quran.